Ingrid, could you start off by explaining to us what your initial experiences were of Wilf moving into adulthood and transition planning?
When Wilf was 17 and a half and was referred to adult services, we had two assessments, one to assess our eligibility for the service and then an initial assessment. And I refused to sign the resulting report because it wasn't good enough. And I contacted Linda, who I knew, and was able to engage you to help us, because it was very, very difficult as a parent just saying this isn't good enough at all. Wilf has had a statement from before he was eligible to start primary school. He even had support at nursery school, and we've been known to social services in terms of respite care since Wilf was preschool, and so we had to reprove our eligibility for services, even though he's had a statement and had full support, including break and lunchtime support for many years. It seemed a bit ridiculous to have to reprove our need and to be asked to actually prove Wilf's IQ score. That seemed a bit ridiculous. And then we had an integrated assessment from a member of the health part of the learning disabilities team and the care management part, and all it was a regurgitation of everything they told me and I told them, and absolutely nothing about what they hoped to do to support Wilf. I remember being in Year 9 filling out a transition plan, and we had a rough idea of what we wanted for Wilf. We wanted him to be able to do the same things that we expect his younger brother to do, which is be happy, get a job, educate yourself as best you can, and live independently and be healthy and well, and do the very best. I think Wilf's just coming in. Oh, Wilf's gone that way. So we filled out this transition plan and said we certainly didn't want Wilf to go into residential care, and we wanted Wilf to work maybe every morning and then do some thing like sporting or something socially included in the afternoons. I don't know what happened to that piece of paper, because I had to say it all over again, when Wilf was 17 and a half, and we were very concerned about housing, all sorts of things.
Okay. Can you explain exactly what we did and what the process has been?
I'd said I'm not at all happy with the situation, and the assistant director of social services was very supportive and said, yeah, I think we can do this better. And we had a person-centred planning meeting last April, and it was focused on Wilf, and it started with everybody saying something positive about Wilf, and I expected him to run off after about 5 minutes, but he enjoyed hearing people from college saying what he was good at, and then we talked about the people where we wanted to be, which is Wilf sharing a house with friends when he's maybe early 20s, what sort of job that Wilf could do, and being socially engaged, because what we didn't want him to do was be socially engaged, and also we didn't want him to be still at home with us when we start to be unable to give him the care he requires, or dead. That's something that we worry about, and we wanted to be with him to support him into his own life while he was young enough, and we were able to give him the support to do it. So it was talking about finding a house or a housing situation that would support him, and he could share maybe with other people, but we could still be involved. We wanted him to have employment and good health, and there's no reason why he couldn't work. I don't want him just being weeding somewhere. It needs to be a decent aspiration. We've got decent aspirations for his brother, so we have for him as well. So it was, and we didn't want him to just waste his time, and we didn't want this all to happen because of a crisis. We wanted to be with him to support him.
Yeah.
If all these things fall into place, then Wilf's behaviour is going to be so much easier to manage, because he's fulfilled and engaged. When Wilf isn't, then that's when it's difficult, and I want us to make sure that it's all done without it going wrong. We want to get it right, not try to fix it when something has gone wrong.
And could you tell us, Ingrid, what's been different about person-centred transition planning and the approach that we've been using compared to the way things traditionally happen or from your previous experiences?
The support plan was absolutely fantastic because you gave me a framework to fit in, but this support plan also became a working profile, so that we've been able to hand that over ahead of people, and I've only had to put the effort in once and then add on it, not have to do it all over again and again. So that's been an unexpected bonus.
Yes.
One person I spoke to in housing before the original meeting said, "Oh, we've never had a request like that before. We're used to dealing with crisis." So even the concept of planning was new. It's lovely to feel confident that about Wilf's future rather than desperate. Well, we expect all these things for his brother, and there's no reason why we shouldn't expect them for Wilf.
Absolutely. Given your experiences of thinking about the future for Wilf and starting to talk to people about what needs to happen to make that a reality, what do you think needs to be embedded in the single plan to make sure people get full lives?
The challenge is that the system is absolutely not set up to have a long-term goal. It's all 1 year from one annual review to the next, or your RAS, whatever, is agreed until such and such. Where, we need a 5-year plan, if not slightly longer, but but the whole system is just geared from one assessment to the next assessment, and it's all about whether you've got this budget. And I've been trying to say, you have to have a budget agreed with me about Wilf spending more time with the carer than always being with us. But that's only agreed for a year. Then we've got to reassert our eligibility to it. But it's just, there is no long-term view, no long-term outcome. It's just matching this year. And I feel by having these meetings and making the point again and again that hopefully we can get an agreement that we're working for a goal that isn't a few months away. It's a lifetime goal. It's not fair to Wilf that he has to express his dissatisfaction or unhappiness through behaviour that's not great. He doesn't need to be humiliated or his dignity reduced like that. It's down to all of us to plan properly. It's common sense. If you start from what will bring the best outcome for this person and how can we support that and goal, and if the outcome, the longer term outcome is agreed to start with, and then work out how to get to it rather than, and to knit everything together to make sure that whatever is happening in education supports what's going to happen in employment and it's backed up with health. Just weaving it all together. And just a belief that there's no reason why we all aspire to paid employment and living with who we choose. Why should anything be any different for my son because he has the learning difficulties and autism? It shouldn't be any different. And I think what's needed is families to be involved in the planning process, to be given information, and what I would have liked is sort of seeing what other families ahead of us who are a little bit older have achieved and an opportunity to meet them or to hear their stories. But it is about involving the family, not telling us what you think, but asking us what we'd like and finding a way through the middle. Volunteering and work experience I think is appropriate for Wilf at 18, but is it going to be appropriate at 25? Is that going to sustain him? I don't think so. Employment we wouldn't have even talked about. We had assumed that you'd start that after college, and if it would have been so fragmented, I would have felt completely hopeless about Wilf's future. But having you pull it all together is marvellous because there's no one person who's been involved who actually knows what is going on. And people only know a little bit about each thing, but by having you to pull it together and get people to exchange the information, that's given us the opportunities to be able to plan positively for Wilf. And not just looking in the short term, looking in the long term, and knowing about funding streams, understanding what ALS means, what YPLA and so on. But these are important funding streams, and we're not necessarily accessing them all or using them appropriately. But there seems to be nobody who knows what's going on everywhere. But by putting everybody together and sharing that, it's been very positive. And hopefully it'll help other families as well, because each person may have spent 2 hours, well, an hour and a half here today, but then they're more knowledgeable for the next people they meet. So it's a win-win, really.